and longing for an answer, we cry out, Lord, when will my breakthrough come? When will my burden be lifted? When will my prayers be answered? And sometimes in the silence, doubt begins to creep in. We wonder if God has forgotten us. We wonder if he hears us at all. But let me tell you today, God's timing is perfect. And the blessing you have been waiting for is on its way. The Bible tells us in Ecclesiastes 3:1 to everything. There is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. God is not a second too early, and he is never a second too late. He is always right on time, but I know that for many of you, waiting is hard. Waiting tests your faith. Waiting can feel like an endless wilderness. Wasted season, God is working even when you cannot see it. He is arranging things in the background, moving pieces into place, preparing the right people, the right opportunities, and the right moments. Think of Abraham. God gave him a promise that he would be the father of many nations, but years passed, and still he had no son. He must have wrestled with doubt, wondering if God's promise would ever come to pass, but God was not in a hurry. He was shaping Abraham, strengthening his faith, teaching him to trust in divine timing. And when the time was right, Sarah gave birth to Isaac, and the promise was fulfilled. My friend, what God has promised you, he will bring to pass. You may be praying for healing. You may be asking God for restoration in your family. You may be seeking financial breakthrough, a job, a spouse, a child. You may be wondering if your prayers will ever be answered, but I tell you today, don't give up. Don't let the enemy whisper lies into your heart. Don't let impatience drive you to settle for something less than God's best. The blessing you've been waiting for is coming. One of the greatest traps the enemy sets before us is discouragement. He wants you to believe that God has forgotten you. He wants you to believe that your situation is hopeless, but my Bible says otherwise. My Bible says in Isaiah 40:31, but they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. When you wait on God, your strength is renewed. When you trust his timing, he lifts you up. The devil wants you to grow weary and give up right before your breakthrough, but don't give up, my friend. Keep pressing on. Keep believing. Keep trusting, because just when you think God is silent, he is preparing something greater than you could ever imagine. I have seen people in deep despair crying out for God to move, and in his perfect time, he opened doors they never thought possible. I have seen marriages on the brink of divorce, but because they held on, because they believed in the power of God's timing, restoration came. I have seen people struggling with sickness with no hope in sight, and yet in God's perfect moment, healing came. Remember, Joseph, he had a dream that one day he would be in a position of great authority, but before that dream became reality, he was thrown into a pit by his brothers. He was sold into slavery. He was falsely accused and cast into prison. It must have seemed like God had forgotten him, but the Lord was with him through it all. He was shaping Joseph, preparing him for something greater. And when the time was right, in an instant, Joseph went from the prison to the palace. I don't know who I'm talking to today, but somebody needs to hear this. You may feel like you're in the pit, but God is not finished with you. Yet you may feel like you've been abandoned, but God has a purpose in your pain. And when the time is right, he will lift you up, my friends. The Bible says in Habakkuk 2:3, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie, though it wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not. God has appointed a time for your breakthrough. He has set a moment for your blessing. It will not be delayed and it will not be denied, but you must trust him. Some of you are standing at the edge of a miracle, but you're about to walk away because you don't see happening yet. But God is saying, hold on, stay faithful. Don't let go. If you stop now, you'll miss it. If you turn away, you won't see the promise fulfilled. But if you stand firm, if you keep the faith, you will see the hand of God move in your life. The devil wants you to be impatient. He wants you to take matters into your own hands. But let me warn you, every time we try to rush God, we make a mess of things. Look at Abraham and Sarah. When they grew impatient, they tried to fulfill God's promise in their own way, and it only led to strife. But when they waited, God fulfilled his word just as he said he would. God does not need your help. He needs your trust. He does not need you to figure it all out. He needs you to surrender. Because when you let go and trust his timing, you will see him do exceedingly abundant above all you could ask or think. I believe that right now, even as I speak, God is working in your life. He is opening doors you cannot see. He is preparing blessings that have your name on them. He is lining up divine appointments, bringing the right people into your path, orchestrating things in ways you never expected. And when that moment comes, when your blessing finally arrives, we'll look back and say, Lord, now I see why I had to wait. Now I understand why the door was closed before. Now I see that your plan was so much greater than mine. My friend, don't give up. Keep waiting. Keep trusting. Keep believing, because the blessing you've been waiting for is on its way. I want you to hear me today. What God has promised, he will fulfill. You may not understand the delays. You may be wondering why the door hasn't opened yet, why the situation hasn't changed, why the answer hasn't come. But I'm here to tell you that God is not a man that he should lie. His word does not return void. If he said it, he will do it. If he spoke it, he will bring it to pass. But he will do it in his time and his way and for his glory. The enemy wants to whisper lies in your ear, telling you that God has forgotten you, that your prayers don't matter, that your faith has been in vain. But let me remind you of mine. Well, it's something. God is never late. He is always on time. Think about the story of Lazarus. Mary and Martha sent word to Jesus saying, Lord, the one you love is sick. They expected him to come right away. They expected him to heal Lazarus before it was too late. But Jesus delayed. Lazarus died. It seemed like hope was lost. It seemed like their prayers had gone unanswered. But what did Jesus say? He said, the sickness will not end in death, but will be the glory of God. Some of you are in that waiting place. You feel like the situation is too far gone. You think the opportunity has passed, but what you don't realize is that God is setting the stage for something greater. Jesus didn't come to heal Lazarus. He came to raise him from the dead. He didn't come to do what was expected. He came to do the impossible. And when he stood before that tomb and called Lazarus out, it wasn't just a miracle for Mary and Martha. It was a testimony for all who were watching. God's delay was not a denial. It was a setup for something bigger. I wonder how many of you have been praying for something and you think it's too late. Maybe you've been praying for your children and it seems like they are too far gone. Maybe you've been asking God to open a door and you feel like the opportunity has passed you by. But I tell you today, God's not finished his plan for you. It's still in motion. His promise is still alive. And when the time is right, he will speak and your blessing will come. For one of the hardest things for us to do is to wait. We live in a world that wants everything instantly. We want answers now. We want blessings now. We want breakthroughs now, but God is not on our schedule. He works in eternity, and he sees the full picture. He knows what you need, and when you need it, he knows what must be prepared before he brings you into your promise. Think about David. He was anointed as king when he was just a shepherd boy, but he didn't step into the throne right away. He had to go through years of waiting, years of battles, years of running from Saul. There were moments when he must have thought, Lord, you called me. You chose me, but why am I still in the wilderness? Why am I still struggling? But God was preparing him. He was strengthening him, and when the time was right, David became king, not just any king, but one of the greatest kings in history, a man after God's own heart. God is preparing some of you right now. You don't see it, but he is working the doors that haven't opened yet. It's because he's building better the prayers that haven't been answered yet. It's because he's aligning things for his perfect plan, the struggles you're facing. It's because he is refining you, strengthening your faith, teaching you to trust him, even when you can't see the way. I don't know what your waiting season looks like, but I know this: if you trust God, you will not be disappointed. His plans for you are good. His promises are sure. He knows what he is doing. Maybe you're facing financial hardship and you don't know how you're going to make it. Maybe you've been looking for a job and every door seems to close. Maybe you're asking God for a spouse, for a child, for restoration in your family. Maybe you've been crying out for healing and it feels like nothing is changing. Let me tell you, my friend, God hears you. He sees you, and he is not ignoring your prayers. He is working even when you don't see it. I want you to think about Noah. God told him to build an ark because a flood was coming, but the flood didn't come right away. For years, he built that ark for years. People must have mocked him for years. It must have seemed like nothing was happening. But when the time was right, the rain began to fall. And because Noah had obeyed, because he had waited, because he had trusted in God's timing, he and his family were saved. Some of you are in your building season. You've been praying, and it seems like nothing is happening. You've been faithful, but you don't see the results yet. But God is saying, keep building, keep trusting, keep believing, because when the time is right, the floodgates of blessings will open, and you will step into the promise that God has prepared for you. We serve a God who is not bound by time. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God who parted the Red Sea, the God who made the sun stand still, the God who fed 5,000 with just 5 loaves and 2 fish. And if he could do all of that, don't you think he can take care of you, my friend? I know the waiting isn't easy. I know there are moments when you feel like giving up. But let me encourage you today, hold on. Keep pressing forward. Keep your eyes on Jesus, because your blessing is coming. Your miracle is on its way. Your breakthrough is closer than you think. God is faithful. He will not let you down. He will not forsake you. He is working behind the scenes, moving mountains, making a way where there seems to be no way. And when that moment comes, when the doors fly open, when the answer arrives, when the blessing is finally in your hands, you will look back and say, Lord, now I see. Now I understand your timing was perfect all along. So do not be discouraged. Do not grow weary in well-doing. Keep praying, keep believing, keep trusting, because the blessing you've been waiting for is coming. And when it comes, it will be greater, more beautiful, and more powerful than you ever imagined. I want you to hear this deep in your spirit. God is not done with you. He has heard every prayer, seen every tear, and watched over every step you have taken. You may not see the answer yet, but he is moving. He is working. His timing is not just good, it is perfect. Some of you have been waiting so long that you've started to question whether God's promise still stands. You've prayed, fasted, and cried out, but nothing seems to be shifting. You've stood in faith, but the breakthrough hasn't come. And now the enemy is whispering, never going to happen. Maybe God changed his mind. Maybe you misunderstood. Maybe he's forgotten about you. But I'm here to tell you that the devil is a liar. The word of God says in Numbers 23:19, God is not a man that he should lie, neither the son of man that he should repent, hath he said. And shall he not do it, or hath he spoken? And shall he not make it good? If God has given you a promise, he will bring it to pass. The problem is not with his promise. The problem is with our patience. God is not in the business of doing things halfway. When he works, he finishes what he started. That's why he is taking time to prepare you for what's ahead. Some of you are asking for a blessing that you're not ready to carry yet. Some of you are praying for a door to open. But if it opened today, you wouldn't have the strength or wisdom to walk through it. So instead of rushing the process, God is building you up. He's strengthening your faith. He's just teaching you how to trust him, even when you can't see the full picture. Think about Moses. He was called by God to deliver the Israelites out of Egypt. But before he could lead the people, God had to prepare him. He spent 40 years in the wilderness tending sheep, learning humility, learning dependence on God. That waiting season was not a waste. It was preparation for the great calling ahead. Some of you are in your wilderness season right now. You're wondering why things aren't happening as quickly as you expected, but I'm telling you, God is getting ready. He is molding your character, refining your faith, and strengthening you for what's to come. The problem with many of us is that we want the promise without the process. We want the victory without the battle. We want the blessing without the preparation. But if you receive something too soon, you're ready for it. It won't be a blessing. It will be a burden if you step into a position before your heart is prepared. The very thing you prayed for could become the thing that crushes you. That's why God in his love and wisdom sometimes says, not yet. Think about Joseph. He had dreams of grace. But before those dreams came true, he was sold into slavery by his brothers. He was falsely accused and thrown into prison. It seemed like everything was going wrong, but in reality, everything was going right because God was preparing him. When the time was right, in a single moment, he went from the prison to the palace. Some of you feel like you're in a prison of delay right now. You feel like life has held you back, like you're stuck, like nothing is moving forward. But just as Joseph's breakthrough came at the appointed time, so will yours. God is setting things up in ways you cannot see. He is moving behind the scenes. He is aligning people, opportunities, and circumstances for your good. And when his appointed time comes, no force in hell can stop it. The enemy wants you to grow weary in the waiting. He wants you to give up right before your blessing arrives. But Galatians 6:9 says, and let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. That due season is coming. That appointed time is already marked in heaven. If you don't quit, if you don't give up, if you keep pressing forward, you will step into everything God has promised you. God's timing is not just about bringing blessings. It's about revealing his glory. Sometimes God delays an answer, not because he is withholding something from us, but because he wants to do something so miraculous that everyone around us will see his power. Look at the story of Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. They refused to bow to the king's idol. And because of their faith, they were thrown into a fiery furnace. Now, God could have delivered them before they were thrown in. He could have stopped the fire from being lit, but he didn't. Instead, he allowed them to be thrown in because he had a greater purpose. When the king looked into the fire, he saw not 3 men, but 4. Jesus was with them in the fire. And because of that miracle, the entire kingdom saw the power of God. Some of you are wondering why God hasn't delivered you yet. You're asking, Lord, why haven't you pulled me out of this trial? But maybe God isn't pulling you out because he wants to show up in the middle of it. Maybe he wants the people around you to see his power. Maybe he wants your family, your friends, your co-workers to witness a miracle so undeniable that they will know only God could have done it. Waiting on God is not wasted time. It is the process through which faith is refined. It is the season where trust is tested. It is the place where we learn that God is not only faithful in the blessing, he is faithful in the waiting. I know some of you have been waiting a long time. You've been praying for years. You've been believing, and nothing seems to be happening, but I want you to hold on to this truth. Delay is not denial. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't happen. God is still on the throne. His promises still stand. And if he said he would do it, he will do it. I think of Hannah in the Bible. She wanted a child so desperately. And year after year, she waited, she cried, she prayed. It must have seemed like God had forgotten her. But what she didn't realize was that God wasn't just giving her any child. He was preparing her to be the mother of Samuel, one of the greatest prophets in Israel's history. What she thought was a delay was actually divine positioning. And when the time was right, God answered her prayer. Some of you have been waiting for a long time, and you feel like giving up. But I'm telling you today, don't stop praying. Don't stop believing. The answer is on the way. The blessing is coming, and when it comes, be greater than you ever expected. God has a plan for you. He is not late. He is not slow. He is not ignoring your prayers. He is working in ways you cannot see. And when the right time comes, you will step into the blessing he has prepared for you. So keep trusting, keep waiting, keep believing, because the blessing you've been waiting for is coming. And when it comes, you will see that God's timing was perfect all along. There is something powerful about trusting God's timing. It requires faith beyond what we see, beyond what we feel, beyond what we understand. The Bible tells us in Isaiah 5,589, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways. My ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." That means we don't have to understand how everything will work out. We just have to trust that God, what he is doing. Too often we think we need to have all the answers. We think we need to see the full picture before we can have peace. But real faith is trusting that God is in control. Even when life doesn't make sense, it's believing that his timing is perfect, even when we feel like we're waiting too long. It's knowing that he is always at work, even in the silence. Think about the story of Abraham and Sarah. God gave them a promise that they would have a child, that Abraham's descendants would be as numerous as the stars. But the years passed and nothing happened. They waited and waited, and still no child. In their frustration, they took matters into their own hands, and Sarah gave her servant Hagar to Abraham, thinking that maybe this was how God would fulfill his promise. But that wasn't God's plan, because they tried to rush what God was doing. It only led to pain and heartache. Many of us have done the same thing. How many times have we tried to force something to happen, thinking that we could speed up God's timing? How many times have we grown impatient, and taking matters into our own hands, only to find that it led to disappointment when we move ahead of God. We end up settling for less than His best. But when we wait on Him, we receive exactly what He has planned, and His plans are always greater than anything we could imagine. God eventually fulfilled His promise to Abraham and Sarah, and in their old age, they had a son, Isaac. And when that child was born, it was clear that this was God's doing, not man's. That is the beauty of waiting on God's timing. When the blessing comes, there will be no doubt that it was His hand at work. Some of you have been trying to figure everything out on your own. You've been striving, pushing, working, trying to make things happen in your own strength. But God is saying, be still and know I am God. He is reminding you that He is in control, that He has already planned the details of your future, and that His timing is perfect. Waiting on God does not mean being passive. It doesn't mean sitting back and doing nothing. It means continuing to pray, continuing to walk in obedience while believing that God is working behind the scenes. Waiting is an active process. It is a demonstration of faith. Look at the Israelites as they stood before the Red Sea. They had the enemy behind them, the water in front of them, and nowhere to turn in their panic. They thought it was. But Moses said to them in Exodus 141,313 to 14,144, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which He will to you today. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. And in the very next moment, God parted the sea, and they walked through on dry ground. Some of you are standing in that same place today. You feel trapped. You don't see a way forward, but God is saying, stand still, and still my salvation. Watch how I will move. Watch how I will open doors. Watch how I will make a way where there seems to be no way. God's timing is not just about when something happens. It's about how it happens when He moves. He moves in such a way that His glory is revealed. If the Israelites had crossed the sea on their own, if they had found their own way out, no one would have given God the credit. But because the situation was impossible, when God moved, there was no doubt that was His hand at work. Maybe you are facing an impossible situation right now. Maybe you are looking at your circumstances and you don't see any way forward, but I am here to tell you that the God who parted the Red Sea is the same God who is working in your life. Today He's not changed. His power has not diminished. And when the time is right, He will move in such a way that there will be no doubt it was His hand at work. I think of Elijah on Mount Carmel. The prophets of Baal had been crying out to their false gods all day, trying to bring down fire from heaven. But nothing happened. Then Elijah stepped forward, and before he even prayed, he poured water all over the altar. He made the situation even more impossible, and then he prayed. In an instant, fire fell from heaven and consumed the sacrifice. Why did God wait until that moment? Because He wanted it to be clear that this was not man. God will often wait until the situation seems impossible before He moves. He will let the odds stack up against you. He will let it look like there is no way forward, not to discourage you, but so that when He does move, everyone will know it was His hand at work. That's why we must trust His timing. If you are waiting, it is because He is preparing something greater than you can imagine. If the door hasn't opened yet, it is because He is getting everything in place. If the answer hasn't come yet, it is because He is working in ways you cannot see. Think about the birth of Jesus for generations. The people of Israel had been waiting for the Messiah. They had been crying out, longing for the Savior to come. And then at just the right time in the little town of Bethlehem, Jesus was born. Not a moment too soon, not a moment too late, right on time. That is the God we serve. He is never early. He is never late. He is always right on time. And if He was on time for Abraham, for Joseph, for Moses, for Elijah, for Mary and Joseph, He will be on time for you. So don't lose heart. Don't let the enemy tell you that it's too late. Don't let doubt creep in and steal your faith. The blessing you have been waiting for is coming. The breakthrough you have been believing for is on its way. And when it comes, it will be greater than you ever expected. Hold on to God's promises. Keep standing in faith. Keep trusting in His perfect timing, because when He moves, it will be more powerful, more miraculous, and more beautiful than anything you could have imagined. And when that moment comes, you will look back and say, Lord, you knew exactly what you were doing all along. I want you to understand today that God is not just a promise maker. He is a promise keeper. When he speaks, his word does not return void. It accomplishes what he has set out for it to do. Some of you have been waiting so long that you've started to wonder if you even heard God correctly. You started to question if maybe you got it wrong. But let me remind you that if God said it, he will do it. He does not operate according to human limitations or deadlines. He operates according to his perfect plan. So many people in the Bible had to wait on God. They had to endure long seasons of uncertainty, seasons where it looked like nothing was happening. But in the end, they saw that God had a purpose in the waiting. David was anointed as king when he was just a shepherd boy, but he didn't take the throne immediately. He spent years running for his life, being chased by Saul, hiding in caves, facing hardship after hardship. If you had looked at David's life in those years, you would have thought he was further from the promise than ever. But every battle, every struggle, every season of waiting was preparing him for what God had called him to do. Some of you are in the same kind of season. You know what God has promised, but it feels like everything is working against you. You feel like you are moving further away from the blessing instead of closer to it. But I want to encourage you, God has not forgotten what he said. Just like David, you are in a season of preparation. God is strengthening you. He is refining you. He is building you into the person who will be able to carry the blessing when the time comes. If God gave you the blessing too soon, you wouldn't be ready for it. It would be too heavy for you to carry. Sometimes we think we're ready, but God in his way sees what we cannot see. He knows what is ahead. He knows what we need to develop before we step into the promise. And that is why he allows us to go through seasons of waiting, because the waiting is where we grow. You see, faith is not really tested in the moments when everything is going right. Faith is tested in the moments when nothing makes sense, when you're praying, and the answer hasn't come yet, when you're believing. But you don't see the evidence. That is where real faith is forged. That is where you learn to trust God, not because of what he has done, but because of who he is. Look at Job. Everything, his family, his wealth, his health, he had every reason to give up, and yet he held on. He said in Job 13:15, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. That kind of faith shakes the enemy. That kind of faith moves mountains. That kind of faith is what brings the breakthrough. And in the end, Job received double what he had lost. God restored him. God lifted him up because he refused to let go of his trust in the Lord. Some of you are on the verge of giving up. You've been waiting so long that you feel like you don't have any more strength left, but I'm here to tell you, hold on a little longer. Keep pressing forward. Keep trusting, because just like Job, David, just like Joseph, your breakthrough is coming. God's timing is always strategic. He knows the exact moment when everything will fall into place. If you try to force something before it's time, it will not have the impact it is supposed to have. But if you wait on the Lord when he does it, it will be undeniable. I think of Peter when he and the other disciples were out on the boat. The storm was raging and they were terrified. But then they saw Jesus walking on the water. Peter, full of faith, said, Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you. And Jesus said, come. Peter stepped out of the boat and walked on water, but then he looked at the wind. He looked at the waves, and he started to sink, and Jesus reached out his hand and pulled him up. What does this tell us? It tells us that as long as Peter kept his eyes on Jesus, he could do the impossible. But the moment he looked at the circumstances, he started to sink. Some of you have been walking in faith, but then the enemy came with distractions. He brought fear. He brought doubt. And now you feel like you're sinking. But let me remind you, Jesus is still there. He is reaching out his hand. All you have to do is take him. God's timing will not fail. He will not fail. If he has brought you this far, he will not leave you now. You have come too far to turn back. Keep your eyes on him. Keep believing. Keep trusting, because the blessing you have been waiting for is closer than you think. God's timing is never off. It is never too early, never too late, always perfect. No matter how long you have been waiting, no matter how impossible your situation may seem, remember this: God has already planned your breakthrough. He has already set the appointed time for your blessing. And when that moment comes, nothing can stop it. You may not understand the delays. You may not see the Full picture, but faith is trusting in the unseen, believing that God is working behind the scenes. Every struggle, every moment of waiting, every unanswered prayer is not a sign of God's absence, but a preparation for what's to come. He is shaping you, strengthening you, and making you ready for the blessing that is on its way. So do not lose heart. Do not give in to doubt or fear. Stand firm in faith, knowing that when God moves, He will exceed every expectation. The blessing you have been waiting for is coming. The door is about to open. And when it does, you will look back and say, Lord, your timing is perfect all along.